It was a crisp autumn morning in the city, and the air was buzzing with activity. Ethan, a successful businessman, hurried into his favorite coffee shop, a sleek briefcase in hand. He had a major meeting with investors in less than an hour, and his time was running thin. Inside the shop, the line was long, but he was a regular here. He was used to the efficiency of the staff, and he ordered the same thing every day: a black coffee, no sugar. Simple, quick, and to the point. Just like him. At the counter, a young woman named Lily was working. She had just started her shift, juggling multiple orders while trying to stay calm. When Ethan stepped up to the counter, she smiled warmly, but she could see the tension in his eyes.
Good morning. What can I get for you today?
She asked.
Large black coffee, no sugar.
Ethan said, his voice clipped. He glanced impatiently at his watch as she nodded and turned to prepare his order. Lily moved quickly, but in her rush, she accidentally poured a splash of milk into the coffee. When she handed it to Ethan, he barely looked at her, grabbed the cup, and left without a word. As Ethan walked briskly toward his office, he took a sip of his coffee. The moment the taste hit his tongue, he stopped in his tracks. Milk. His eyes widened in frustration. How could they mess up something so simple? He turned back toward the shop, but he was already late. Fuming, he tossed the coffee in the nearest trash can and continued on his way. The day was chaotic from the start. The meeting dragged on longer than expected, and Ethan couldn't shake the lingering annoyance from the morning. He was used to control, precision, everything in its place. That coffee mix-up had thrown off his whole rhythm. Days passed, and Ethan found himself avoiding the coffee shop, still irritated by the incident. But one afternoon, a week later, he found himself walking by and decided to give it another try. He stepped inside, and to his surprise, Lily was there again, standing behind the counter. This time their eyes met, Lily's cheeks flushed with recognition.
You're the black coffee guy, aren't you?
Ethan raised an eyebrow, unsure whether to feel offended or amused.
Yeah, and last time I got a coffee with milk.
Lily winced.
I'm so sorry about that. I remember it was a crazy day and I was rushing.
She paused, biting her lip.
Let me make it up to you. Your coffee is on the house today.
Ethan hesitated. Normally, he would have brushed it off, but something in her sincerity made him soften.
All right,
He said, his tone less harsh than before. Lily smiled as she carefully made his black coffee, double-checking every step before handing it to him.
Here you go. No milk, I promise.
He took a sip, nodding in approval.
perfect, thanks.
As he turned to leave, something stopped him. He looked back at her.
What's your name?
Lily.
She replied, looking up at him, a hint of surprise in her eyes.
I'm Ethan.
He said, a small smile tugging at his lips before he left. Over the next few weeks, Ethan found himself stopping by the coffee shop more often. At first, it was just for the coffee, but soon it became about the conversations. He learned that Lily was an aspiring artist, working at the coffee shop to make ends meet while she pursued her dream. She was kind, creative, and had a contagious optimism that began to draw him in. Lily, in turn, learned that Ethan, beneath his polished exterior, was a man who had sacrificed a lot for his success. He was driven, yes, but also lonely. The weight of his career often left him feeling isolated, and he was surprised at how easily he could talk to her. How, in her presence, the stresses of his world seemed to fade. One evening, as the shop was closing, Ethan found himself lingering. Lily was cleaning up behind the counter, and he offered to help, despite her protests. As they worked side by side, laughing about the mess they were making, the air between them shifted. There was an undeniable chemistry, something unspoken but understood.
Funny how things turn out.
Ethan said, glancing at her.
I almost swore off this place after you got my order wrong.
Lily laughed softly, her eyes sparkling.
Well, I'm glad you gave me a second chance.
He looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something other than the pressure of his career. He felt warmth, connection.
Me too.
He said, his voice gentle. As they stood there, in the quiet of the empty shop, Ethan realized that maybe, just maybe, life wasn't always about precision and control. Sometimes the best things came from a simple mistake, a splash of milk in a black coffee, a chance encounter, and the beginning of something more. And in that moment, surrounded by the hum of the city outside, they both knew that this was just the start of their story.